Good evening and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard and that was almost a singy type introduction.
Yeah, I liked it.
Do you like it? Because joining me tonight, who's not even going to wait until he's introduced. That's how keen and excited he is.
I'm totally excited to be here. Utterly, totally excited.
It's Caezar Aljassar from Alley Cat Games. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me here.
That's all right. It's been. I think this has been this has been probably the one that's required the most organisation in terms of us
probably mostly my fault.
I think it's
having
both
to reschedule and then putting it in the calendar and going, oh wait, were we supposed to talk 3 days later?
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
But tonight it is, they say, and as Colin would say, it is your night. And we're into the episodes, we're into the hundreds of episodes now. Or
excellent.
Over the 100 mark, which happened. So, in other words, you basically, the last 100 was just the practice. This is the real deal. So there's no pressure tonight.
This is it.
This
is it. I've got to perform.
If you're
gold or go home.
If you're terrible, I'm just going to pretend this didn't happen.
Well, we can always delete the whole thing.
No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. But I suppose we should speak to all the lovely people that are listening just now. And the thing to say is, first of all, thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us. People continue to kind of be jumping on board. They obviously like the the superior plate of jammy Dodgers that we have outside in the foyer. And as I say, we've not only got filter coffee on tap, we've now been asked for decaffeinated Earl Grey as well. I don't know why we've brought that in, but it is all wonderful and all fabulous. The reason that we continue to do this is because we believe in our heart of hearts. There's quite simply not enough podcasts out there about board games.
That's very true.
And the second reason is, when you've got a force of nature involved in the UK Kickstarter scene, like Caezar, it's absolutely rude to have everybody else on except him.
Of course.
Which is why
I'm not sure a storm or whatever you described it is the best way. More like a light breeze.
I was going to say a drizzle, but that
drizzle works as well.
Could be misconstrued as something else. But moving on. But how are you doing anyway? First of all, before we.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Busy.
Yeah, I mean we've got as of now, we've got a week and a half left until the Kickstarter, and I didn't know until about 2 weeks before this, but my graphic designer has been on holiday for 2 weeks.
Oh.
So I was like, had to sort things out before he left, and we still have 50% of it to go, and the video guy has been in Florida, so he's had to lock down everything because of the storm, and so everything's fine, of course.
Everything's fine. You're looking quite good on the Sky camera, I must say. You're looking quite chilled and relaxed. But then I realised that's a photograph of you.
Yeah, of course.
Probably taken at a happier time.
Oh yes, there's always a happier time when you're not working on board games, obviously.
I didn't even realise you've got a Kickstarter coming up. I've never been told or never seen it kind of anywhere.
No, I try and keep it hidden. I don't want to tell people about it, but somehow it keeps leaking out. I don't know why.
It's probably the Dice Hospital T-shirt you're currently wearing, but I'm not judging.
Oh God.
What we like to do in these episodes is obviously it is a work in progress. And what we mean by work in progress is that we like to speak to a creator, and we like to find out a little bit more about them. Not just the product. It's a little bit about your good old self. And it's called...
Oh, should we stop it right here then?
No. Because as we say, what we like to do is we like to have a little gaze back into the past. We like to have a little focus with the eyes on the present before we kind of shoot off round the corner with all sirens blazing in the ambulance of the future.
Love it.
Do you like that?
Love it.
I just made that completely off the top of my head.
That's brilliant. You should be a freestyle MC.
I don't think that would work.
There are a few Scottish MCs out there, so
I still don't think that. I would probably have to stop halfway through, and then I would be rubbish. And I would just falter at the first hurdle. But first of all, we do want to find out a little bit about your history. So if you want to tell us a little bit about how you got and ventured into the land of cardboard.
Me and my wife, we started playing board games quite a while back when we were doing our PhDs. So this is about 8 years ago. I mean, we were always gamers anyway from a very young age, but we were introduced to modern board games probably about 8 years ago.
Okay.
From a friend of mine. And he introduced us, the basic things like Settlers of Catan and then Ticket to Ride and, so forth as you go on through gaming. But it wasn't until we were on holiday in 2015 when the designer of Subterra actually sent me a copy of his latest prototype at the time.
Uh-huh.
And the reason I knew him is because, I tell everyone this because it's a crazy story. So I actually used to go to school with this guy because I was best friends and I still am best friends with his older brother.
All right.
So I've known him since he was like 3 and he hates me when I tell this story that I've known him since he was 3. But he sent me a design of one of his games in 2015 and he just said, I just want to know what you think of the game.
What was the game?
I can't remember the name of the game, but essentially it was a Celtic themed sort of set collection game.
All right.
Very simple. I don't think he wants me to talk about it. But Tim Pinder is the designer of the game.
Okay.
Yeah, so I know his older brother, and actually, I'm still best friends with him, which is just crazy. But yeah, Tim sent me the game. Me and my wife were like, yeah, this is really cool. And obviously he'd done the art or whatever himself, and he printed it and he sent it off to us. So that kind of got us going during our holiday, and we thought to ourselves, well, Tim's made this really great game, and we know him, and we thought, well, if someone that we know can, is capable of making such a cool game, we thought, why don't we give it a go? So, at the time, I was reading this book called The Secret Anarchy of Science by this author called Michael Brooks.
All right.
It's a really great book, basically telling people about how scientists cheated their way to the top, or they had been sabotaged, famous scientists, non-famous scientists. It's a great book. So, and then me and my wife came up with the idea, why don't we just come up with a theme about, sabotaging people and building up your lab and something like that. And my wife even came up with the name Lab Wars on that first day. And then literally we sat, on our little, apartment overlooking the swimming pool, and we just said, hey, let's go and just pick up some paper and card and make this game now.
You just
so we just got in our hire car, we went down to the local town, we just got loads of paper and scissors and all sorts of coloured pens, and we just started from there. And then 9 months later, Lab Wars was on Kickstarter.
Well, it could have been slightly differently if 9 months later there was a little one turning up instead.
Yes, well, that's another type of podcast.
It's a beautiful bouncing miniature board game.
Yes.
What's your out of interest, and because I am genuinely a nosy person, what's your PhD all about? What's your PhD in?
Oh God!
Come on.
Oh, God.
What's one of the more difficult questions?
Well, you see, I don't want to talk about it because I've forgotten it all now.
What is it? No, come on.
I don't like to brag about it, but
you should brag. It's your night, as we say, brag.
I was kind of forced into it as well. Like to add, my parents were like, right, if you didn't get into medicine, you've got to do a PhD now. Sorry.
Right. Okay.
I was like, oh bloody hell, all right then.
All right. So you were going to be a doctor.
No, well, I tried to be, but
Okay.
I'm a failed medic.
No.
That's why most PhD students, they just go into it because they couldn't get into medicine. That's the harsh reality, a lot of it.
So what did you do your PhD in then?
So I did it in molecular biology. Well, molecular and structural biology. So,
all right.
So we looked at the molecular and structural biology of this protein in the heart, and whenever it had a mutation, it could basically give people heart disease. So the story I like to tell people is most people know about Fabrice Muamba, who collapsed on a football field.
Yeah.
So essentially the stuff that I looked at caused the same sort of problems for people. So it was this... Basically, it's called ARVC, which is a very long scientific name. But essentially, if you have a mutation like that, and you do lots of exercise, you get to a point where if you do too much exercise, you can just literally collapse from doing too much.
Is the V, is that got the ventricular or something like that in it? Is it?
Wow. Yes! Correct.
Guessed it.
Correct. Well
there
done.
You go. Give me my certificate. PhDs are easy.
That's what I did. Yes. You know what? They give them out like Smarties these days.
I bet you they don't. I know how much work people put into a PhD. You know what I mean?
They do. But you know what? I have a lot of respect for people that did it in the 70s, because to do it back then with no money, no resources, and, you know, to find out some really interesting stuff was really, really hard back then.
I guess just to kind of pioneer it in something like that. I guess nowadays it's like, I wonder if this has been done before. And you could probably go away and you just Google it. And I guess in a lot of the studies and a lot of the stuff that people have worked on their PhD is kind of set in there, and you can check. It must have been really annoying to maybe work on something for like 2 or 3 years, and then to turn up at kind of like with your PhD stuff ready, and find out that somebody else had just done the same thing but taken a slightly different kind of slant on it.
The really good thing is nowadays, you know, we have things like PubMed or Google Scholar, and it's actually relatively easy to find out if someone else has done something similar. So you really should be doing something that is at least a little bit innovative. You know, you're at the front of your field. The biggest problem is that you are most likely going to be doing something that someone else is working on at exactly the same time. And that's where the Lab Wars things comes into play, because it's so competitive now, and there are certain countries in the world where cheating is a way of life just to get to the top, because you have to do it, which is a really sad state of affairs. But it happens. Are
you still in the state? Are you still in the same industry then? Or are you doing something else?
No, this is my full-time job.
Awesome. What?
Yeah, so I left. My contract finished 2016 in June. Funnily enough, when Lab Wars was on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And I decided with my boss that I wasn't going to renew my contract. And I said to my wife, this is what I want to be doing. And she was like, yeah, I'm going to fully support you.
So you're now a full-time board game designer?
Well, not a designer anymore, but a publisher.
Publisher?
Yeah. So publisher / developer.
That's pretty cool. It's a different... It's kind of like looking at your CV would be like, PhD, molecular biology, lots of complicated stuff. Even more complicated stuff involving board games.
It's a crazy way, but you know, there are so many people that have crazy turns in their life, and as long as they're happy and, you know, they're making a living off of it, then good for them. Yeah,
I mean, if you become passionate about something, I guess if you can make it this thing that you do all the time, and if you become very good at it and you're able to make money out of it and keep a roof over your head, then there's absolutely nothing wrong in my book with doing that at all.
Yeah, definitely. I'd certainly recommend it to people, like, because I've spoken to so many people, you know, my friends or strangers, and they just say they either hate their jobs or whatever, and they just, you know, maybe they're in a crossroads in their life and they just don't know what to do. And my simple thing is just basically say, what do you enjoy? And can you make a business out of it? And if the answer is yes, I can just about scrape by for the first year, I'd say do it and see what happens.
Because you're nothing to lose.
Exactly, you have nothing to lose. You know, unless you have a mortgage and, you know, you have lots of overheads and you don't have a partner. You know, having a partner is a big deal, I think. And that's why I'm super appreciative of Cully.
In terms of, with you having an analytical brain, and I'm guessing that you do, is that reflected in kind of like your board game collection? I mean, what are the kind of games that you like to play? What would you settle down? Are you a heavy Euro guy, or?
Definitely not.
No.
It reminds me too much of work, like real work. It's kind of, like, I totally appreciate the guys like who want to play games like Phil Eklund and you know, his games. And I actually work for Phil as his Kickstarter manager. That's another story altogether. But I totally respect those sort of games, but I just can't play them because it feels like I'm doing my PhD all over again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, especially if you're playing something like, if you try to set up something like, say, Feast of Odin, or something like that. Because
that looks great, but I just would not want to touch the rulebook of that.
I've seen that. I've also, what's a game I've got?
What about Yokohama? That looks fantastic as well.
That does.
But really complicated.
And you're just like, do I really want... Do you know what the funny thing is? That what I've heard about A Feast for Odin is that you have all these different boards, you have all these different moving parts, but once it kind of gets going as a machine, it does actually run like a machine, and it's absolutely fantastic. It's like Dungeon Lords as well. I've got Dungeon Lords, and the fact that there's like about 4 or 5 different boards with tokens and meeples and little goblins everywhere, that kind of puts me off, because I am a man of a relatively small brain, and so anything that kind of takes my attention away for this, for the briefest second, and I'm just kind of going. I think I watched Rado play through Dungeon Lords, and I just went, yep, okay, I'm going to put that back in the cupboard. Basically.
Yes, there are a lot of games like that.
But so what you you're playing yourself then? What is it you like to kind of play?
Oh gosh, I have lots of games that I like to play, and I was just saying to my wife the other day that my favourite game of all time that I can just take out every single time and enjoy is probably Battle Line.
All right.
The Reina Knizia classic. So I met a guy a couple of days ago called Roland. He runs a publisher called Roland's Revenge.
Oh.
He's also an illustrator, and he actually made a limited edition print run of Battle Line recently. And I saw it and I was like, oh my god, I have to buy it. So I messaged him and I was like, where can I buy it? I need to buy this. I need to buy it right now. And he said, oh, my parents live in Hertfordshire. And I was like, oh my god, so do I. So I was like, can I buy it off you? And he was like, yeah. So we met up, we had breakfast. And it was just totally cool. And he sold me this limited edition game.
So is it like kind of like a dodgy deal in a kind of a cafe? You both had a bit of bacon and eggs in it.
Except that, the powdery stuff, we had the card stuff.
Exactly. What you got? It's about I got 2.5 kilograms, mate.
Yeah, it was totally like that. But actually, probably my favourite game is Istanbul.
Oh yeah,
love that game. Love it. It's just got a beautiful blend of Euro mechanics, pick up and deliver. No wonder it won the Spiel des Jahres award. I also like at the moment Explorers of the North Sea.
Okay.
So that's by Shem Phillips, the guy who did the Raiders trilogy.
Yeah.
So that's part of that trilogy. But yeah, I think I'm not into like medium plus games. It has to be, but medium is okay, but it can't be like too heavy and it can't be like too thinky, because I hate reading rule books. I have this problem where I sit down, I read a book and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. I have to usually get someone else to do it for me. So I get my friend Andy, who was the lead playtester for Lab Wars and Cauldron Master.
Right,
he will teach me some games, despite the fact he lives in Sheffield. So sometimes I'll just go to his house and he'll teach me 4 games. So tomorrow I'm meeting him in Peterborough because he's working there. He's like, right, what games do you want to learn? I was like, Tiny Epic Quest. I want to learn Scythe. He was like, okay, bring them both. I'll teach them to you. I was like, yes.
He's like your game rule dealer. He
is. And he keeps shouting at me. He was like, I can't believe you're a publisher and you don't learn the rules yourself.
Yeah, but it's like, it's a different kind of thing. It's like, I may be the guy that paints the Sistine Chapel, but I'm not necessarily the guy that cleans the brushes.
Hey, reading the rulebook is an important job.
It
totally is.
It is.
But I just can't be bothered.
I know, it's exactly. Because, I was talking about this, I was talking about this the other day, that I've still got the others sitting there waiting to play. And I start reading the rulebook, and then it cuts to like a bit of flavour text. And I'm just like, yes, I understand you're trying to create atmospheres. Atmospheres is important. However, I'd like a cohesive document, please, because otherwise I just start thinking about something else, and then I get scared of the game, and then I put it back in the box, because that's how it works. So get it sorted out, Mr. Lang. But anyway,
yeah, those are the sort of games. I mean, other honourable mentions. I'm looking at my collection now. What else do I like? I quite like real-time games. So one of my favourites at the moment is the Escape Zombie City one.
Oh, yeah.
Another one, it's not real-time, but it's co-op. It's one of my favourite co-op, is Dead Men Tell No Tales. That's a great pirate-themed co-op game about trying to collect some treasure from a burning ship, and you've got a limited amount of time to collect all the treasure and get out. And then probably my favourite worker placement game is just the classic Viticulture.
I do love Viticulture.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And then probably my my favourite Euro, if you want to call it that, Castles of Burgundy. So yeah.
I've heard good. I tell you what, I've actually got a friend who he was an old university friend, and I went and seen him last month for the first time in years, and he had Castles of Burgundy, and he says,
great.
He says he's never played it, so I says I'll kind of go over and I'll come over and we'll have a game. Now I've got to learn how to play Castles of Burgundy.
It's really not that hard, honestly.
I've heard
for someone like myself. I did have Tim Pinder teach it to me, and he's a good demonstrator. But despite that, it is easy to learn.
You're painting a really good picture. Is this good? Because I noticed there was a strange kind of stretch goal when you did Lab Wars originally, which was like have some other random person that didn't have anything to do with our game come round and teach you how to play our game.
Yeah.
But was that? You mentioned obviously you're on holiday. You decide to put kind of Lab Wars together. But I mean, what kind of, with you kind of moving from one industry to another, and you're getting into the creative side of things, was there part of you at any point that kind of went, what am I doing? I'm sitting here looking at graphics. I've got little kind of conical flasks. I've got little point things. This is what, I've got playing cards. I'm getting this all designed. What am I actually doing here? This is, were you ever kind of, or were you just 100%, this is going to happen, I'm completely focused, this is the way I'm going to go?
Usually, if I'm the sort of person that if someone dangles a carrot in front of my head, I'm going to chase after it. So it was as simple as that. And I totally believed that there was, because despite being an academic, I had always been quite a business-minded person. So, when I was younger, I used to be a waiter, and I used to, because my family weren't the richest people, but we weren't poor. So I really valued having pocket money. So when I went to work at restaurants or whatever at a young age, I really valued the money, and I always thought to myself, how do I make more money with that money? And then I moved on to becoming a salesperson, and then I realized I had a knack for understanding, and this is the most important thing, like, what do people want? It's not just a phone. It's about understanding where the person comes from, how often they're going to use the phone. Are they bothered about the style of the phone? Are they just looking for something cheap and functional? And I realized back then, and I was a teenager, I was like, you can't box people into different things. Everyone's got their own personal tastes. And then you've got to think about, okay, you can't just make a product for one person. You've got to make a product for a wide variety of people, but then that wide variety of people need to want the same thing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I always had that mindset that whenever you do business, who is going to be buying your thing, and what are the things that you need to tick for them to buy your product. And I think that's really important for a publisher, but also a designer as well, when you're making a board game. Because, we can talk about this later, but I've hired Brett Gilbert as, to be my lead developer with me at Alley Cat Games.
Yeah. And
we have these great discussions about, not just about making a great game, but who is the game targeted for, and why would they enjoy it. So we spend like 50% of our time talking about who's going to enjoy the game or not. And I think that's really, really important. That's a really important thing for publishers, but also designers to think about when you're making this thing.
I mean, with you, when you started in the road of actually, you know, going kind of into the design, the development side of things.
Yeah.
Did you have to restrain yourself with Lab Wars then? Were you considering kind of doing, because you sound like a person that you kind of go 100 miles an hour and you're off.
Yeah.
Did you have an influencer that kind of pulled you back and actually said, Caezar, listen, you're gonna have to, you can't, as much as you would like the miniatures in the Lab Wars game, it's probably not a good idea to have that. You're gonna have to scrap the board. And also you're gonna have to scrap the little glass conical flasks that you were gonna give and every kind of thing.
Totally agree.
You know, I mean, but it means in terms of ideas, I mean, with your kind of, the way that you're driven and stuff like that, do you find you need somebody to actually be a little bit of a damp squib and say, actually, let's stop, kind of think about this and how this is doing?
Yeah.
Yeah?
No, totally. And so first of all, I'm very much like that. I always say to myself, that's not going to work, or I probably am too harsh on myself when I come up with ideas or concepts or things and I say, that's not going to work, and I'm totally pessimistic or whatever. But it's not just yourself that has to do that. You have to get other people, like you say.
Mm-hmm.
But sort of to answer your previous question and to answer this, my product was always going to be to make an academic-themed game that my target was, you know, it was a stupid target. I was like, I wanted every department around the world to have a Lab Wars copy in their department.
Yeah.
And I always said to myself, that's the overall thing that I want, but I'm flexible about how I get there. So first of all, I always tried to be analytical, but whenever I took it to playtest, I always took it with the mindset that if someone says it's terrible, then I got to change it. And if someone says you got to change this, and lots of other people say it, I will change it. And I think that's the sort of academic side of me, which is that any academic will know that every day is spent either being in criticism or criticizing someone else, simply because that is the way science works.
Well, it's peer-to-peer review, isn't it? I mean,
exactly.
that's the whole basis behind a lot of these, hypotheses before they, you stick one out there and you see what everybody else is saying to it, and if people go like, you've not capitalized the A.
Yeah, exactly. And that peer-to-peer review is sort of etched into every academic's mind that without it, your product or your paper or your experiments, they will fail. It's the same procedure with board games. Now, I'm not saying that Lab Wars or all my games are absolutely perfect.
No.
And in fact, in hindsight, looking back, I wish I'd done a lot of things differently. But I think it's having learnt from those mistakes, learnt from the positives, the negatives, you can then move forward. And that's where as a publisher anyway, that's where I've figured out how to sort of improve and continue forward.
Well, I mean, what kind of mistake? It's interesting you use the word mistake, because people are always kind of against using kind of negative phrases. It's like, I didn't have problems, I had challenges, kind of thing. And it's like, they definitely look like a big pile of problems. I mean,
yeah, I think you got. I mean, if you're, I mean, there's two I guess thoughts of how you could think about this. Is I don't want to be rude on the show, but you could be a bull, or you could be honest with yourself and say, I messed up, and I think I did. And I think one of the things was that I probably rushed the project a little bit because I was so adamant that it was going to be done by X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And when I mean rushed, I mean the whole fulfillment and everything. Everyone got their games on time and everyone's happy, blah, blah, blah. But I think the design of the game could have been much more improved, and that could have been helped with 3 or 4 months more playtesting.
Yeah.
And it's basically things like there are a few things in the game which are slightly unbalanced, and there are lots of little punctuation mistakes here and there in the rulebook, and blah 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 blah. And I think you just got to realise that you messed up, and you just got to say to yourself, you can't do that next time.
Do you think it is kind of like you've got to? I don't know. I always think a Kickstarter is like marinating a good chicken.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You give it until it's done. You have to give your Kickstarter until it's done. It doesn't matter if you tell people that dinner's going to be ready at 5:00. If they've got to wait until 6:15, you break out some nibbles and you give them that to kind of munch on before they kind of get the main.
I like it. Yeah, marinating the chicken. That's fantastic.
You know what I mean? Just making sure all the flavour soaks in, that all the spices are in. It gives you a chance to add maybe an extra spice. It gives you a chance to take some stuff away. You know, it's the cooking analogy. But in all seriousness, it is, you end up giving yourself a kind of a deadline, and then you end up fighting to make sure that kind of that deadline works. And then you end up panicking. I mean, a friend of the show, Mark McKinnon of Wreck and Ruin fame, he's coming on, he's coming back on very soon because Wreck and Ruin is going to be launching.
Great, yeah, I've heard about it.
And he's pushed, he pushed it back. He came out and says, "Are you coming on the show?" And he was going to be coming on the show a month ago, and he said, "Listen, I holding my hands up here. I need 3 weeks more. I need 3-4 weeks more just to get everything kind of together." And that can make the difference between running a really, really good campaign and getting everything perfect. Do you know what I mean? Putting on that little bit of extra kind of seasoning to really make that chicken kind of sing.
Yeah, and totally agree. And it's good that Mark's done that.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's good that Mark's done that, especially because me, Peter, and Lewis, us three publishers, we run that UK tabletop group, and it's really nice to see that people are listening to our feedback. We listen to everyone else's feedback, and it's a really good community. And Mark has really taken advantage of that. So it's really nice to see that he is listening and saying, "I'm not ready. I'll put my hands up. But hey, it doesn't really matter. Another month, no problem."
I still want to get a hold of the original models that he used for the. Because
I haven't seen them.
I met him, and he was using the kind of the Play-Doh type models that he had, and they were brilliant because they were obviously just like prototype, big, huge, round, sausagey type vehicles with big, huge wheels. And I was just saying, if you can, you've got to make an entire set of vehicles for the Kickstarter that are based around these molds because they're absolutely brilliant. They're absolutely fantastic. But we're not here to talk about Mark as much as like to. He's going to get his.
That's fine.
I'm
looking forward to that one.
He's going to get his own chance. Just interested to hear what he has to say and how things have moved on since.
Definitely.
Since we kind of last spoke. With you then, you completed Lab Wars. Lab Wars funded. Lab Wars went out to everybody. You sound like, in retrospect, you kind of would maybe do a couple of things kind of slightly differently.
Yeah.
You then went on afterwards, and you went away from science to maybe people would say the Mystics. Was it?
Yeah, it was. It's Cauldron Master, which was our next game, and the whole. I mean, actually, I made that game in parallel when I was making Lab Wars.
Okay.
Essentially, I wanted to make Lab Wars' little brother because it takes some of the mechanics but makes it a very, very simple game. But it's some of that social deduction that you had in Lab Wars, which was trying to figure out what characters other people are going to try and play.
Yeah. But
also just a simple set collection mechanic and putting it in cauldrons and matching it up, and it's sort of like a push your luck element as well within the cauldrons. But yeah, I did go away from science, but I think the thought process behind that was again more of a business sort of concept, which was right. Well, Dice Hospital, which I knew was going to be my third title, and that was coming along anyway.
Yeah.
I wanted to expose my brand to people that weren't just scientists, because I noticed that a lot of people that bought into Lab Wars, they were mainly scientists, but not a lot of them were gamers. Like proper gamers who back Kickstarters on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And I think that was because, we were a first-time company, and it seemed quite sciencey when it really wasn't. So I wanted to make something that was a little bit more appealing to the gamer market. So we wanted to make something that was sort of a bit quirky, but not like a theme that had been overdone. Yeah. So I know there are lots of witch games out there, but I didn't really feel like there was a light set collection game with a witch theme. So that's why we went with it.
Did you go through kind of like several different iterations of the theme before you kind of went on it, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. So the first version we ever had was a teddy bear game. So you would go, it was almost like you were a family of teddy bears and you were stealing ingredients from families' picnic baskets in the woods. That was the kind of like concept in the beginning. But then I realized that was way too childish, and the people that we were wanting to sell it to wouldn't buy it, basically.
You kind of, no, I don't know. I kind of disagree wholeheartedly.
I don't know.
I would have loved a teddy bear game.
It could have worked. And I found this amazing illustrator from Chile who drew bears.
Oh, no.
He was amazing. Yeah, and he was fantastic, and I loved his work. It would have worked really well. But I just felt I needed to do something a little bit more serious and make it more of a, like, adults could play and not just with your kids, if you know what I mean. Because it is a game that you can play with your partner or with a mate as a light filler.
I'm listening, but I'm shaking my head thinking of some guy who probably took trips down to darkest Peru to see Paddington's family to get his inspiration for drawing bears.
Yeah, probably.
You come back with a witchcraft influence cauldron.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, in hindsight, I mean, I made some mistakes with that one as well.
I'm not judging at all, Caezar.
But the design I felt like was quite solid. I think maybe the rulebook could have been written a bit better. Paul Grogan actually helped me out with that. He did a really good job with that. But
Paul Grogan from Gaming Rules?
Yes.
I'd like him to be a friend of the show, but he won't return my calls.
I'll put in a call and I'll say, "Hey man, what are you doing?"
It's all good. You always hear about Paul, always on Polyhedron Collider, where he's always done something, and I don't know exactly what he's done because they never actually say what he's actually done, but they always make comments, and then you see him on Twitter saying, "What have I done now?" And it's like you know, so it kind of moves on. But so obviously you went out and Cauldron funded well. I mean, again, it was another
it was
success,
alright. Yeah, it made £15,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
So reasonably well. I mean, the really good thing was that we were able to get some of the games air freighted to my house, and I got to send them out really early, and it was actually 2 months early compared to my delivery date. So I was really pleased about that.
Do you think it's really weird? Do you think getting a game out on time or even early is a massive victory for a Kickstarter game?
Massive. Totally agree. Because everyone who does a Kickstarter knows, it's going to be a couple of months late. Everyone's cool with that.
Yeah.
I think once it starts getting to 6 months, that people are like, okay, what's going on? And I've had a few like that, and I do feel frustrated, and I'm just thinking to myself, why is it taking this long? And being a publisher myself, it's either due to these people are not doing it full time, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
But also, if they are doing it full time, then it's just pure laziness. Because no, seriously, if you give yourself a 6 month cushion for a light game, predominantly a card game, that is totally doable, especially if you have all the art done.
Yeah.
But if you've only done like 40% of the art, then and you do your Kickstarter, that's your own fault, sort of thing. So I have really, very little sympathy. But at the end of the day, it is Kickstarter, so anything's game. That's the problem.
I mean, Kickstarter looks like is going to be and continue to be kind of like your platform of choice.
Yeah.
To the point where, and we are going to speak about Dice Hospital, but to the point where, as you've mentioned already, you're part of the UK tabletop Kickstarter group.
Yeah.
You and Lewis.
And
do you know? Yeah, I know, but you see, we talk about Peter all the time, and Peter's been on this show enough that Peter doesn't need another mention. In fact, I feel bad when I look at the scores and the doors. It's like, how many times has Peter been on? Lots. How many times has Caezar been on? He's been on. This will be one. We're almost. We're at 0.67 at the moment in terms of number of times that he's been on. How often has Lewis been on? Lewis hasn't been on. I feel really bad about that.
You should get him on, yeah.
I know,
for sure.
It's absolutely terrible. I feel really, really bad about that. But with that in mind, I mean, with your experiences and stuff like that, you give out you kind of advice, and you actually, it's a service that you're offering now, isn't it? You're actually helping businesses with their kind of their Kickstarter stuff. I mean, how did that come about? You know, you've got
it was really crazy. I mean, to be honest, it wasn't, I wouldn't say desperation, but I was trying to think of a separate funding avenue to keep my business going, because Kickstarter is up and down, and one time you can have a great Kickstarter, and next time you can have a really bad Kickstarter, and if you don't plan well, you could be screwed. So it was more of a business decision to diversify away from me just doing that. And because a lot of the time as a publisher, you're waiting for your graphics designer to do things, or your illustrator, or your rulebook editor. Sometimes you're actually just twiddling your thumbs, just waiting for something to happen. Yes, you can be proactive, and I do spend a lot of time on Facebook, but there's a lot of downtime. So I just thought, what can I do with that downtime? And the only thing I could think of that was a skill set that I could sell was advice. So my wife and I were on holiday, and we in the States, and we met up with these two guys, and they met us. They had seen us already through Twitter, and you're like, hey, you're the Lab Wars guys. And we're like, yeah. They're like, oh, can you help us out? And we're like, yeah, sure. So they invited us to have some dinner with them, and they were, and I was just like, look, I could see that they were totally struggling, because they had literally no idea what they were doing. They'd made this game and they wanted to self-publish, but they had absolutely no direction. And I just said to them, look, I can't offer you the world, and I'm not going to say you're going to fund like $20 million, but I'll say I can help you guys out. And they're like, oh my God, great. So I just said, this is what I can offer. This is how much you'll have to pay me. And they were like, done. Okay. And then after that, I just thought to myself, well, I can start doing it. And then I got to a point where I was like, okay, well, I've still got another 6 months at least until Dice Hospital comes out. So I wanted to see if I could get other games on board with my own brand. So I started reaching out to designers, and one designer I reached out to was Phil Eklund. And because I know he makes science games, so I said to him, I was wondering if he had any science games that he had in the back burner that he might want other people to publish rather than him. Yeah. So I messaged him just out of the blue, and I said, "Hey Phil, this is me. I used to be a researcher, and I'm doing this." And then he was like, "I don't want to publish any more games with other people." Yeah. Because he had been burnt with the High Frontier 3rd edition. All right. Okay. You might have heard about that story. Because anyway, long story cut short, he actually said, "Do you want to do my Kickstarter for me?" And I was like, "Hell yes." So then after that, he was like, "What can you do?" And I said, "I can run the whole thing for you," and blah, 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 blah. And he was like, "Great, that's your job. You do it." And so now I'm Sierra Madre Games' official Kickstarter campaign manager. That's pretty cool. So what game was it you helped them with? So all I did was the Kickstarter page and sort of publishing advice, sort of like his right-hand man. I mean, he has been designing games for 20 years, so he knows what he's doing. But he loves, just like me, I love hearing advice. He loves hearing advice, and he'll always listen to people's opinions. And that's what I really like about Phil. We're on a similar wavelength there. And he was just like, you seem like a good guy. Let's work together. And I think for him, what he wanted to retain was control of the game, control of how it's sort of sent out to backers, because that's how he was burnt with High Frontier. Yeah. So all I said was, you keep control of the game, you keep all the money, you just pay me or whatever, and I'll run the Kickstarter campaign. And he was really happy. And it did super well. It did $309,000, mainly because he has such a huge fan base, but also because that fan base told other people, there's this Kickstarter campaign, you should back it. So I spoke to him a week ago, and he told me that he compared like-for-like sales between his website and his Kickstarter. Yeah. And he said the Kickstarter made a huge difference in comparison. So I think it just goes to show that selling direct is still inferior to going to Kickstarter. It's
kind of strange, isn't it? Because I see some people that are doing it and some people that I've seen some people that go to Kickstarter and then they have the website kind of afterwards, and they keep the game kind of in stock and continually print it. And I've seen that with Grubbling Games. I've seen that also with Tim Fowers as well. Doing, they have their own little working site, and you can go ahead and you can buy the games kind of off their site, and they almost use the revenue from the games to print more games in order to kind of keep themselves going, which is kind of cool. Yeah. Is it difficult? Why am I doing high pitched? Hello, is it difficult? Is it difficult to advertise that type of service? Because I can imagine somebody saying, I'm an amazing designer, look at this, and you're going, this game is actually fantastic. Unfortunately, your plans for your Kickstarter are a bit mince. So is it different? Do you have to be kind of like subtle like that? Do you get people kind of like approaching you almost kind of subtly to say, listen, I am good at designer. I know I am a good designer. However, marketing, I'm absolutely really bad at it. Can you help me with that? Is that
no. I mean, to be honest, like to be a publisher, I think you have to have a wide variety of skills, and that includes this whole marketing thing that you're mentioning to make it successful. And that's why I don't do the design stuff anymore, because the designing is a whole different set of skill sets that are completely different to publishing. So you've really got to concentrate on one or the other. And I think for a designer, fresh, and he's made this great game or whatever, he truly believes in it. Some of them are just not going to have the marketing skills for it to do well on Kickstarter. Yes, they can put it on Kickstarter because they can make an okay amount of money, $10,000 or whatever. But for a good game to really make the money that it deserves, you do need someone with his business hat on, and that's why you need someone like me as a consultant, or that's why you need the publisher, because they do that side of things. And sometimes it is beneficial.
Do you get frustrated sometimes when you see a campaign that you've seen and is actually, you see it looks fantastic, it looks amazing, and you can see it's just whimpering along, and you're like, if I got hold of that, I could make this canary sing kind of thing?
I've seen lots of really good games with bad Kickstarter campaigns. Not to say that I think I could do any better, but I think that sometimes they could do with having had someone just give them some proper advice, or for them to just sit down and do some research. We've had so many people come through to our Kickstarter page on Facebook, the Tabletop Kickstarter group, the UK one, and they just come by and they say, "Can you come and help me out?" And people, we take a look. There's all of us, and it's just some of them are really bad, and no, they really are, and it's mainly because they just haven't done the research, and I think they just think that Kickstarter is some kind of pot of gold that they can just swim into, just because of how many good Kickstarters there have been. And I think it's that kind of lack of research, maybe a little bit of ignorance, that suggests that that's why they do it.
Do you think, okay, here's another one for you, because these are just coming off the top of my head, like
go for it.
Eruptions from a volcano, except without the burning liquid hot magma. Do you think, have you seen games that have managed to create the noise, which aren't necessarily fantastic games, fund exceptionally well, compared to a game that is a better version of that game, but it has not any noise at all and is absolutely crashed? Because I seem to see it more and more, and I seem to see the case where I am screaming at people, why didn't you come to me 3 months ago to talk about what you were going to be doing? Because I've not heard of you before, kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's a very typical behaviour of most new Kickstarter creators, which is that they've designed the game and they've practically done the Kickstarter, and sometimes they've launched it, and no one's heard anything about it. And that's when you kind of want to put your head through the wall, because you're kind of like thinking to yourself, why don't these people do any research? I mean, you don't when you back in the old days when you used to have to go to the bank manager, you couldn't just turn up and go, all right, mate, here's my computer. Do you want to buy it? You'd never go to the bank manager. It's the same with Kickstarter, except the difference is it's not one person you're trying to convince; it's thousands.
I can imagine the bank manager saying to you, "Yes, Mr. Aljassar, I'm telling you again, if you come back in here doing those terrible accents, I'm giving you no money."
Well, the bank manager has said that to me, so yeah.
He's just putting on a different straw hat and a big glove and going, "And what's your name?" It's Charlie. It's Charlie Alja. It's Caezar, isn't it? No, it's not. I'm here by your convoy harvester. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but it is really sad because, lots of ideas could make lots of really great games, and it's beneficial for the industry to have people who know what they're doing and do it well to introduce more people to the hobby, because that's what we all want. We want as many people who don't play board games to come into the industry and like it. Because it's a great hobby, it's a great industry, and it's really sad when you see these people doing really badly because they just haven't done their research.
Do you know what it's like? It's the Tesla Edison thing.
Yeah.
Tesla was amazing. It could say, "Oh, listen, I can create electricity out of the air and just have it coming down to substations." But Edison was the guy that went out and knew how to sell stuff to people.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it was him that kind of went on to do it. I mean, sometimes it is almost a case that you want to, for some projects that you see, you want to take them and you want to take them out to maybe like a little Kickstarter hospital where they could maybe get better and improve.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, there are so many forums like that. That's why I'm trying to bang it home that there's literally no excuse for people to behave in that way because there's so much of it on the internet.
I just gave you an excellent segue to talk about your game and you fluffed it. I'm just saying.
Well, my favourite thing is talk about good Kickstarters. But yeah, we can talk about that hospital game you mentioned.
I'll try again, okay? Of course, sometimes, Caezar, what you want to do is you want to take a bad Kickstarter and you want to put it into a little hospital where it can get better maybe, and you can kind of maybe change the faces of the dice so they've got healthier pips. Isn't that right? Yes, well, funny you say that.
There's a game that we've just made called Dice Hospital.
Well, tell me all about Dice Hospital then.
So it's our third game.
Okay. What's it about? What's the message?
So the message is it's a hospital for dice, and the dice are the patients. So Excellent. It's kind of like this semi-meta thing where the higher the pips they are, the healthier they are. The lower the pips, the less healthy they are. So it's basically a worker placement like game with dice manipulation mechanics.
And that's the end of the podcast. Well done. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Where'd you get the idea for a game like this? Because I've heard this is kind of like what they call the spin up and spin down mechanics, where you take a dice, and I've seen it before. In fact, the last time I seen it was a much loved game, Steampunk Rally.
Yeah.
Which you basically had to spin down the dice in order to get rid of them, in order to basically event them.
Yeah. It's similar. So Dice Hospital was actually our first adventure where we didn't do the design in-house. So the design actually came up with an American designer called Stanislav Kordonsky. He's based in, by Chicago. I think he's based in Wisconsin, actually, which is nearby. But anyway, he came up with the concept, and he had this game up on the Indie Game Alliance website for basically designers looking for publishers to pick up their games. Mm-hmm. I was looking for a hospital game. That popped up. It was worker placement mechanics, dice manipulation. I was like, ooh, that sounds good. And
it's like a would like to meet advert. It's like a dating thing.
Yeah, no, it literally was. It was literally a dating place for publishers to meet designers. And yeah, and I contacted Stan. He contacted me the next day saying he was still looking for a publisher.
Oh wow.
And this was about this time last year, maybe before. And it was still pretty rough. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But I could see the potential, and I could see that it sort of overlapped with our philosophy of science-themed games, and it had a lot of, basically potential. It got to a stage where it needed more development, but I didn't feel like I could get a handle on it.
Yeah.
So that's when I asked Mike Nudd to come involved, because I had been talking to him for a couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, the game is slightly broken, but I reckon I can fix it. So literally I said, take the prototype. And literally a week later, he was like, here you go, I fixed the game. And it's basically what it is now.
Is it, when you go back, was it difficult to go back and say, "Oh, listen, we've changed your game slightly"? I mean, what was the reception like when you told them that you changed the game?
So, me and Stan, I said to Stan, look, leave it with me for a couple of months and I'll see what I can do with it. And he was like, okay, I trust you. And then I came back and I said, look, Mike Nudd's come involved. He's now a co-designer, and he's basically redeveloped the game into basically using all your core concepts, but just streamlining it. And then Stan looked at it and he basically said, holy moly, this is a great game. This is much better, and this is how I felt like it should have been. So everyone was really pleased. Mike was pleased because he's come on board. I'm pleased because the game's better, and Stan's pleased because it's going to get published to a good standard. So yeah.
Explain. I mean, the game's coming out a week and a half.
Yeah.
What do you do? If I dumped Tom Clare, doctor, in the Dice Hospital, and he had his little Champions of the Wild with him, what would Tom be doing to help these dice patients?
Yeah. So every turn, you've got to use your workers to treat dice. And the way you treat them is you have a special custom player board that manipulates the dice by taking a meeple and putting it on an action spot. And the action spot will tell you can treat a dice of a certain color or a dice of a certain number. And that's your starting board. So it's sort of like something to get you going. But then every turn you'll intake more and more dice. But the problem is the hospital likes to invest in new rooms, but they don't like to invest in new wards and new patient beds. So you've only got a limited supply of beds that you can treat the dice in.
Yes.
Now, if you reach the full capacity, your patients will start to die and you'll lose points.
Okay.
So the whole point of the game is you're continually having to accept patients, but at the same time you are trying to discharge them, and it's the discharging that gets you the points. Now, the beauty of the game with the dice manipulation is you want to get all the dice up to a certain level, which is 6, which is close to being discharged. Yeah. And then you want to discharge them all at once in the same round. So basically, the more you discharge in a single round, the more points you get. So you're constantly trying to balance the intake of the dice, but then you're trying to discharge them all at once without having to be at full capacity, basically, and lose points.
It sounds like viticulture and making the sparkling wine when you've got to combine kind of different. Yeah, a little bit. That's right. And in a way, it's like that in terms of the balance of what you're trying to achieve. But the other great thing about the game, and this is the beauty that Mike brought into it, was the whole comboing aspect. Yeah.
So every turn you would pick up a new specialist with a extra meeple, so it gives you an extra worker because you only start with 3, which isn't enough to win the game.
No.
Or you can pick up a new room with a special ability. So what you're really trying to do is comboing certain specialists into certain rooms and manipulating it in a way where you're comboing everything, so you're maximizing the efficiency of your hospital.
How long does it take how many players can you have?
1 to 4 players.
Oh, you can play it with single player?
Yeah, it's solo, yeah.
Oh. So how does that work? Is it just a case of you're just doing the same thing, but you're just trying to clear out as many dice as possible then?
It's similar, but we made it on purpose specifically harder. Because during the game, when you draft the dice, you place them on the ambulance cards, which are basically the initiative cards to pick it up. So the easier dice you get, the last choice you get in the upgrades, but the harder dice you pick up, the first choice you get in the upgrade choice. Okay. But in the solo version, you get rid of that altogether, and you literally just pick up 3 random dice, and then you just roll them. and you see what numbers you get out and you put them in your ward. So it instantly becomes more difficult because you have less control over the dice or the patient that you intake into your hospital. But the trick of the game is that it's similar to Ticket to Ride, where you have objective cards, and if you don't fulfill them, you lose points.
Yeah, yeah.
So in our game, you have little medical report cards, we call them, and you have to treat X amount of dice in a specific combination to get certain points. And if you don't fulfill that criteria, you lose points, basically.
It sounds really good.
Yeah, I think so. I'm really excited about it.
It's kind of my bag, if I'm being perfectly honest. I mean, I'm a big, I am, as I say, I'm a massive kind of worker. I'm becoming a bit more of a worker placement type.
Yeah, it's a great mechanic
guy. So I do kind of like that kind of thing. How long does it take to play then? I mean, how long? Hours or days or? No, it's. Like I personally like to make games that I like to play, and I really love Dice Hospital now. But it only takes about 60 minutes. You can play 60 minutes with 3 players and maybe 75 minutes tops with 4 players. I mean, you can actually play with 4 players and it takes you 45 minutes. I mean, we played a 3-player game on last Saturday, like doing a quick playtest with some dude who'd only played it once before, and me and Mike. And that took 40 minutes with 3 players. That's pretty good.
Yeah, the beauty about it is that it has a simultaneous phase. So when you're activating your hospital and manipulating your dice, everyone does it at the same time.
So that will save time rather than everybody kind of sitting around and waiting until.
Yeah, exactly. Because
yeah.
we do say in the rules that you can play one by one, but Mike's preference is that everyone plays that way in the first game. But my personal preference is that's oh my god, that's just so boring. Watching people just twitching their dice, and so I say you play it with 2 rounds linearly, and then you play simultaneously.
Well, it's like it's a proper emergency room, isn't it? I mean, look at it that way. Everybody kind of, you know what I mean? It's like all of the time.
Yeah,
you got to get that sorted out.
Yeah.
With you having the influence of Stan and Mike on your side. Are you feeling now that this is more polished than the other 2 games now? I mean, have they kind of gone through it and says, well, Caezar, you actually should have done this, and we need to do this, and we need to sort this out, and it's kind of checked on. You might have went, well, this is good now.
The beauty about that is it's not just Stan and Mike that have really helped us out. We have this huge Facebook group. We have 1,000 members of people who are like desperate to back Dice Hospital. I'm totally excited that they're there, but the whole time, every time I get new stuff from my graphic designer or illustrator, I come up to these guys and I say, what do you think about it? And I usually get like 50 comments from 50 different people saying, oh, could you change this, could you change that? But not only that, these people have also helped with blind playtesting. So, we've had maybe about 80 different blind playtesting sessions, and using that data, we've used it to just continually improve. And we've just now moved into the final blind playtesting round, so hopefully we'll get even more on what we hope is the final version of the game.
And I believe you had the wonderful, the fantastic, the amazing Rory J. Summers kind of help you put that data together, if I'm mistaken.
That's right. Yeah, he's been really great like that. And I saw a tweet of his, like, I don't know, a couple of months ago, and I saw that he'd done some statistic stuff. So I just emailed him. I said, "Hey, dude, do you want to just look at our data?" And he was like, "Oh my god, yeah, I'd really like to help out." So Rory was fantastic like that. Yeah,
he should change his name to Rory J. Star. I'm just saying, because he is. He's a fantastic guy, and I've got a lot of time for him. If people are going, this actually, this sounds my bag.
Yeah,
take me to the hospitals. How much is it going to be to get a ticket to the hospital?
So I figured out it's going to be £36 or £37 plus a small shipping fee. It will either be £5 or £6. So altogether it will be 43 quid. But the beauty about it is it comes with a lot of stuff. It comes with custom player boards with hex that come in a hex form. It comes with upgraded tiles. It comes with custom Doctor meeples. It comes with lots of different types of cards. It's solo. It's 1 to 4, and it's a light to medium game. So I feel like, well, I hope the price point is exactly to people's tastes.
Is there a little ambulance?
You know what? In the deluxe version, there is.
Oh, there's a deluxe version.
Yep. So we have a deluxe upgrade pack.
Yeah.
I took some advice from distributors in the US who were going to pick up the game, and they said do the Stonemaier thing, which is offer like a deluxe upgrade pack. So in that pack, you'll get 5 they're almost the size of a hand, maybe half the size of a hand, ambulances. And basically, you put your dice in them, and you use them to draft the dice in the deluxe version. You'll also get a mini expansion pack with sort of like a different way to play the game, which is pretty sweet. There's a little bit of dice rolling in that, so it's slightly more random, but it's also quite silly and fun. But it's still quite Euro-y for the feel of the game. And you'll get wooden tokens, and you'll also get a build-your-own hospital dice tower pack as well.
And how much is that going to be then?
So the whole lot is, I think it's going to be 29 quid for the upgrade pack.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's decent.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, obviously, the ambulance is really big, so the tooling cost for that is quite expensive. But everything else is, I think, reasonably priced. It's just a nice way to pimp out your Dice Hospital set, and a lot of people are like, oh my god, I want the 3D ambulances, or I really want a dice tower. So we thought, hey, let's just bundle them into one thing.
Well, Jamie Stegmaier did it with Euphoria, didn't he?
Yeah.
I believe there was deluxe versions of Euphoria. There's, I believe, let's face it, Scythe itself has got a whole expandable board. You know, there's people that are making deluxe stuff that kind of like that all the time. I think it's, I like it when it is an upgrade which is an optional that you can get away with not getting.
Yes. And that's what we tried to do, because, like you say, you don't want to be forced into it.
Yeah.
But it's something that for the higher end people, it will really make them feel like this game is really unique. Because I have ambulances, man, and I have a build your own dice tower that's a hospital. Now you're not going to get that in any other game. You know,
I think that is your 30-second pitch. Is like, why should I consider looking at Dice Hospital? It's like, because I've got an ambulance. And I've got an ability to build a hospital dice tower. And then folk will like that. The pledge button will be going crazy. So the date on this, to remind all the good people out there, because this will be going out in the next couple of days. Yeah,
27th of September. That is if my videographer guy comes good. Poor guy, he had to barricade himself in his house in Florida. I feel so sorry for him.
What's your target yet? Have you decided on
that? Basically just enough to cover 1,000 units, and then anything more is a bonus. So at the moment it's £12,500 is the target.
That's not huge. No. I must admit I was expecting towards 20, considering it's your third Kickstarter. Yeah,
I mean, to be honest, the funding target thing, as long as you set a very, very low base, to cover your costs, it can be really low. So when publishers put up this ridiculously high target, it's usually because they either A, haven't done the maths right, or B, they genuinely believe that they're going to reach a very high target. Yeah. My philosophy is, set as low a target as possible to make it look like that it will fund, because a lot of backers still think that if you back something and it doesn't fund, they'll lose their money. So there is a good percentage of people that still think that. So my philosophy is put as low a target as possible, just so that the psychology is there that it's going to fund.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. They still think that, that's it. I'm kind of giving my money now, and it's like, but my money hasn't left my account. It's like, well, yeah, that's because it's not the end date yet. Oh, okay then. Okay, thanks. Kind of thing. But, I mean, Kickstarter continues to grow. I think you're at the situation now where it's almost like there's almost like a really nice project kind of coming up kind of every week, which is always strange. It's kind of strange, it's confusing, and it also means you got people kind of juggling. I think if you looked at stats, I reckon there'd be a lot of people that do multiple pledges and then make a decision based on how 3 or 4 campaigns kind of go before they back the one they want to back, which is always kind of interesting. No, Dice Hospital does sound fascinating. It sounds really, really interesting. If people have listened tonight and they want to find you, where can they find you on the internet webs?
Well, you can go to alleycatgames.com.
Yep.
You can search for the Dice Hospital Facebook group.
Yep.
There's 1,000 of us there, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's cool.
We're also on Twitter and Instagram as Alleycat Games.
Awesome. And where'd you get the name from?
Again, that's my wife's fault. She loves cats, and she was like, "We got to have a cat-themed publisher name because we have 2 cats and we absolutely adore them." So she was like Alley Cat because they're like us, you know, we're individuals. We're a bit like strays. So Alley Cat Games.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, bit silly.
Nah, it's necessary. Necessary.
Yeah.
If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, and we thank every single one of you that has, then you can find us on the usual channels. You can go to Twitter and find us on We're Not Wizards. We're on Facebook, We're Not Wizards. You can go to YouTube and go to We're Not Wizards Tabletop, and you will find us there. You can email us, which is magic@we'renotwizards.com or .co.uk. If you have liked what you've heard tonight and you want to spread the word, then if you jump onto Apple Podcasts or jump onto any of the available podcasts where you get your podcasts from, if you fancy dropping us a little rating or a review. If you're on Apple Podcasts and you decide to give us a rating and a review, as we say, we've done 100 episodes, we're not changing the joke now. If you like us, don't give us a 10 because that'll make us big-headed. But don't give us a 1 because that'll make us cry. Give us a 5 because it's in the middle and it's average. And we are decidedly average. But the person who hasn't been average tonight is Caezar Aljassar. So thank you very, very much for coming on. I wish you the best of luck with your campaign when it kicks off on the 27th.
Thank you very much.
It's been excellent. There's only 2 more things left to do. The first thing, as always, is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Caezar?
Definitely not.
And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it is a goodbye from our learned friend.
Yep. Goodbye, guys.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe. Roll 6s. If you are rolling 6s and you roll a 2, you might need to make sure it gets better by taking it to a 3, then maybe taking it to a 4, and then hope when another dice comes in and it's feeling a 4, that you get them up to 6 at the same time so you can release them and discharge them from hospital so you can score those extra lovely double points if you're playing Dice Hospital. That given, until the next time, goodbye.